I like that.
Well, let's introduce Jeff real quick, since we officially welcome to the Shoot It Straight podcast, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming on here.
We today's guest, NPC bodybuilder, doctor of physical therapy in pursuit of your pro card, Dr. Jeff Hart. You have a very unique, multifaceted background. Just to name a few, you've competed in CrossFit. You're now competing in bodybuilding. You've competed in powerlifting. You're certified by TPI, which is something else we'll talk about for sure today.
Yep.
Strength and conditioning. You do the Graston method and dry needling, just to name a few. I literally could read your bio for 6 minutes, so I truncated it down.
Appreciate that.
But it's really great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. No, appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, for sure. It's so funny how we came in. Obviously, we came in contact with you through your profession. We were doing a lot of CrossFit training stuff last year. So Cody and I both were hurting all the time, which I actually
happens.
Don't miss that. Yeah. So I was as soon as we moved to South Florida, I was I need to find a PT right away. And your name came up immediately. And then
it's good to know.
A match made in heaven. Yeah.
Worked out.
For bad. But what I loved about you right away, and what I liked about hearing about you even before meeting you, was your background of being a little bit of more of not just one-dimensional, and having a background in different sports and just getting it. I feel that's your thing, is you get it. You get the athletes that you're working with. You work with a lot of bodybuilders, and so I'm sure they appreciate that with you too. So
big time.
Yeah, you're a man of many, many talents. So it'll be fun to kind of dive into your background a little bit today, and of course, talk about what you're up to now in the bodybuilding space.
Sure. Yeah.
And of course, all things dogs, for those that weren't.
Yes.
That we love to talk about.
All the dogs. Dogs are priority over everything.
Pre-show in there where we're talking only about dogs for 5 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah. So tell us, what have you been up to lately? I'd love to kind of hear about your bodybuilding journey. The last time that we spoke was about 6-7 months ago. You got married.
Yeah.
You were competing around your birthday in December. So tell us about what's going on now.
Yeah. So my wife Jenna and I competed in December at Nationals, which was in Orlando. And so this was my first time moving up and competing in actual bodybuilding instead of classic physique at a national show. So I competed in light heavyweights, got top 10. So I was really happy with 10th place.
Wow.
And so out of about 20 some guys, and these are some of the best guys in the country shooting for pro cards. So really cool. I suffered pretty good to get there. And the wife, Jenna, she got 8th place in bikini. Awesome. So she's actually, what are we now? Today's Wednesday. So she's actually just about 4 weeks out from her next show, which is up in Pittsburgh. So she's been dialing it in. She looks the best she ever has. So we've been kind of working, I'm trying to do whatever I can for her to keep her healthy and keep her supported and sane during all the competition prep, but she's looking nuts. So we've been doing that. For her business and my business has been doing great. So just treating a lot of people. But one of the things this year that is also new, I don't know if you guys knew I was doing this or not. I started taking some of the functional range conditioning systems courses. Are you guys familiar with either of those?
No, tell us. I'm not. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I've heard, I'm sure, a lot of people have heard the terms exercises, CARs, or pails and rails.
Yeah.
And so CARs are controlled articular rotations. Pails and rails are progressive and regressive angular isometric loading. And so I've heard these terms, and I've seen people try to demonstrate them, but I didn't really understand it. Right. And so I took the first course, the basic FRC course, in February this year, and I had really low expectations, and it was just mind blowing. It was awesome. And so one of the guys in the course, the guy who taught the course, another guy who was in the course who was kind of helping out, was a chiro, and he said he's changed his whole practice based off his system as a chiropractor. And so I ended up going to Boston in May and took the internal strength model course. And just learning of this whole system was life-changing for me, and how I treat clients, how I train myself. And I'm the strongest I've ever been, the most mobile I've ever been, and things just feel good. So I've been kind of implementing all that in my practice. That's going to be a part of my journey, just with training in the off season. Hopefully step on stage next summer and get the pro card this summer. Hopefully the wifey gets it here in just about 4 weeks. So that's about what we got going on now. Nothing too exciting. The doggies are all doing well. So we have 3 dogs. So one toy Maltese who's 15 years old. She's old and deaf and a little cripple, who I do actually do PT with, which is kind of funny.
Literally.
I literally do PT with her. It's actually much more fun than working with people because people don't listen and then they talk back to you. And so if you just give a dog some food, they'll do whatever you want, as I'm sure Squat knows very well.
Yeah,
So, yep.
I wish he knew better, but yes.
Yes. Yes. So all 3 of the dogs we got are great, but that's just, I'm holding down the fort with the puppies, and while, the wifey's dialing it in for the next show, but that's kind of what we've been doing here.
No, you're killing it. I love that you're always learning, and see, I think that's just going to be who you are for the rest of your career.
Yeah, I mean, definitely that's, that's something I'm very interested in. I don't use a lot of pails and rails, but I definitely use a lot of cars in like my program. For golfers, right? Like, we, especially like the hips, like, like a wall supported hip car, or like, would like a hip airplane kind of fall into the same category?
Yeah. Very similar.
Yeah. So, what's the prerequisite of that? You got to be a doctor like you, or kind of?
No. So actually the basic FRC course is very geared towards trainers. Okay. And so like, if you're going to do, there's a lot of different systems that they teach. They do one an FRA course, which is the function range assessment course. That's a little more hands-on, but I mean, I don't think there's any really you have to take the FRC course to do the internal strength model. And so, I mean, for the both of you, whether for clients or not, like, you'd benefit from it just because it's very fascinating to understand the dynamics, and it just makes sense. It kind of fills in a lot of the holes that we have, just like for me, at least, with training, and then also how I was approaching clients. And so different inputs, like if we need to work on capsular space or, connective tissue architecture, like tendon stuff, is it fast twitch muscle we're trying to train? Is it slow twitch? Are we taking it to failure or not? So it's kind of, that's like a part of the system. And so it takes a little practice to get there. They kind of learn it. And a lot of my clients are guinea pigs for it. I'm still learning because it's new, but I mean, it's awesome stuff. So highly recommended. Dr. Dre Spino and John Quint, both awesome people who taught the courses very, very well.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
We're recording this, so I can go back and just I don't write that down.
Or just text me, and I'll send you their direction. Yep.
No,
that's awesome, because I'm definitely. I mean, I feel like in our space, like in the fitness space, especially like in my golf fitness space, there's a lot of people coming up and like doing what we do. So staying on the cutting edge is really important as as this business grows and just people's wealth of knowledge increases. Like, it's very important to know exactly what's out there and what's going to work the best. And I'm a huge fan of cars. Like I said, I mean, I probably could use pails and rails, especially like for wrists and stuff like that for golfers, wrist hinge and things like that. But definitely could be. I
mean, you can even use it. I'm sure a lot of your guys that you work with have a really hard time with rotation. 100%. And so, I mean, using the pails and rails for rotation. So, like, obviously from a golf, baseball, any rotational sport, it's great. But then think about for bodybuilding, like, we have to turn, for our quarter turns. A lot of these guys I work with are massive humans, and they don't prioritize their mobility like they should. And so even for myself, for Jenna, like, whether you're big or small, rotational sport or not, you can really use a lot of these tools to unlock range of motion and like kind of like unlock these governors that restrict our mobility. So it's really cool stuff. I think you'd love it. Yeah.
Well, that's a huge part of what I want to talk about today too. Because I'm kind of diving into bodybuilding a little bit. I've talked, when you talk to so many people out there and see what they do, and mainly with social media, like, you connect with so many people, like there are some people that still go into the gym and do bodybuilding splits, although their goal is, to be a better golfer or something like that. Not necessarily like, I think most of these people are not ever trying to step on stage with someone like you, right? But they're workouts. They're doing bodybuilding type workouts. So, but this, like, the common trend out there is the common thought is that bodybuilders are not mobile at all. They're like, they're so big, there's no way you can move like that. But like, here's a prime example of like what you're doing to stay mobile, because it helps you in bodybuilding too. Right.
Yeah. I'm 240 pounds, and I mean, if you put me on the floor, I can put my chest on the ground pretty well, and like a V, and just I can put my chest on my legs on the ground. Like, I'm pretty mobile for being 240 pounder, pretty big guy right now. So
for those not watching, you guys should tune into the YouTube channel version of this, just because Jeff takes the entire screen.
He's not a small man.
Yep, I'm large. Since I've seen you guys, I'm probably a lot heavier than I was when I saw you guys. So
you look thick in the best way.
I've got to buy new clothes. I'm huge now, 240 pounds, as big as I've ever been in my life. Feel good though.
Yeah, that's huge.
So, yeah.
I mean, even to step on stage and do some of the poses that you do, like, if you're just completely locked up, like, I'm thinking like, what do you call it? Like just like the double bicep.
Yeah, like a front double bicep, or even a back double bicep. Because a lot of the guys, like any joint that's restricted, the goal is to make your muscles show the best as possible. So if you can't rotate externally, so if you're here, you can't rotate back. Mm-hmm. I mean, the judges aren't going to see it. And then also not only from that, but like from an injury perspective, when we're training, whether you're doing any exercises, if your tissue can't handle with the load you're putting on it, it's going to fail eventually. So that's why we see, bicep tears, we see pec tears, a lot of that stuff happens just because the tissue hasn't been loaded at end range well. And so that's where it comes into our connective tissue architecture and our joint space, which is so important to work on.
100%. I mean, I'm getting very, so I just started like trying to create my own like bodybuilding program for golfers. I still want to have enough mobility. I want to put some power into it. And golfers do need a little bit of conditioning and things like that. So I want to make sure that and not that bodybuilders don't, but like, I definitely want to make sure I put all these things in there. And then, we've talked about this before, like when we first met, is like, you play golf, but there is a point where like, it does become challenging just because the soft literally gets like that. That's what I've told people before. So like, I would love for you to explain that to people, like what that actually means when you get actually. And most like 99.9% of people will never have this problem, but
no. Yeah. I mean, I've listened to you guys' podcast plenty now. And, when people always think they're going to get so big, it's like, no, you're not. Like to get where I am, I mean, whether you're trying to grow tissue, like if you put on a couple pounds of muscle a year, that's exceptional. Mm-hmm. People really overestimate their ability. I mean, everything has to be perfect. You have to train super hard. And if the goal is really to grow muscle as opposed to just getting stronger, there's a big difference there too. And so like once you get to the point though, like trying to squeeze a golf club at this size, I mean, it's challenging. You have to modify things, but I mean, you can make it work. There's a lot of ways to get things done as long as you try. You can modify it and just fine tune stuff. Right. But it's definitely being this size definitely makes it challenging. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But should you take away that if there was a way to not be as physically large, it's not your mobility that's getting in the way. It's
it's just the tissue. Yeah. So like when I squeeze a golf club, I'm trying to keep my my chest gets in the way. I'm just like it's like I'm constantly contracting. I'm trying to hold the club. So but if I little slight bend in the elbow, little modifications, you can make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jeff does have a TrackMan. Do you still have a TrackMan back there in your facility?
Yeah. Oh, there's a TrackMan back there. Yep.
Yeah. See.
Oh yeah. Got a TrackMan. We got the gym in the back. The TrackMan. Yep.
Man of many talents and things. Well, I think one thing that's kind of that Cody and I have talked about recently is that we feel like bodybuilding is making a comeback. Now, I think so. Yeah. I'm not immersed in the world. Obviously, we're in the fitness industry, and obviously we go to the gym and we see what's out there. And I don't think bodybuilding certainly ever died, but it does seem to be making like a resurgence. And I'd be interested in kind of your take on that, Jeff. Like, if you feel like it's becoming more mainstream. I mean, we've watched Arnold now on Netflix. Like, there's all kinds of like more pop culture things that are making it a little bit more accepting. So, what's your take on it? Like, are you feeling like is it getting more competitive? Is there more people ever?
Oh yeah. And if you look at any division across the board, I mean, whether it's women's divisions in bikini, women's figure, physique, and then even for the guys, I mean, over the last 5-10 years, every single year it's more competitive. Yeah, I mean, people just keep getting bigger, people gets more conditioned, the better, and it just makes it more fun. It's not they do give out more pro cards than they used to. But I mean, you have so many more competitors. I mean, it's just some of the shows that Jenna and I have done. I mean, there's 1,000 total competitors at the shows. I mean, it is crazy. And I do think a lot of it, social media is obviously huge. There's a lot of really good bodybuilders that really promote it. And especially because of the different divisions that they have. So they have, classic physique, which most people are familiar with, Chris Bumstead. And so like people can kind of feel like they can emulate that look. I mean, no one's going to look like him. He's one of a kind. But if you can not if you don't have to be 5'7" or 5'8" and 240 pounds on stage, you can be, I think for my height, if I'm 5'8" on a good day, the weight cap for classic physique is in the 190s. So that's still like achievable. That's for the pros. Yeah. So it's a little less than amateur, but like, it's still, relatively achievable. And so I think because you open up more classes too, it makes people kind of feel like they're not going to like fall too far to the category. So I think it makes it a little more achievable to be somewhat competitive at your height and weight, as opposed to it just being all full of mass monsters, which we used to see, the Ronnie Colemans, the Dorian Yates, and all those guys. So big, Jay Cutler, a lot of the big guys like back in the day, it was just the big, that's what we saw. Right. And so now just makes it a little more divisions for people to fit into, I think.
You mentioned that they're giving out more pro cards. Is there not a cap, or like how does that work?
Yeah. So there's only like, you don't quote me on this, I don't know how many. There's probably in our country 6 to 8 pro qualifying shows a year. So some of the bigger ones, there's going to like in some shows there's junior shows, and not everyone can turn pro at a junior show. But so like some of the bigger shows, which we just had just this past weekend, was USA's. It's out in Vegas, and so some divisions the top 2 turn pro, and some divisions the top 1. And so for men's bodybuilding, if you're not in first place in your respective weight class, there's 1 pro card. For classic physique, there's 2, because it's also a newer division. But then if you look at North Americans coming up here that Jenna's doing, I believe it's just the top 1 in each class. The show we did in December, top 2 in each category turn pro. So it depends on the show. I don't know how that's really decided. Really just depends on the show you're doing, but there's a little more given out. I mean, there were less opportunities, 10, 20 years ago, because obviously the sport wasn't where it is, and obviously probably wasn't as much money to fund it either. And so there's a little more opportunity, I think, across the board, for people to compete, for one, and for 2, it's just as the sport continues to grow, it's just more competitive. And so you got to kind of give some people, I think, give more opportunities. Otherwise, some of these shows, like I said, there's 1,000 people at these shows. If you didn't have more opportunities, you might have 50 people in each class, and how do you judge that? It just makes it more challenging, I think.
And you make a living now on bodybuilding without being completely broke, or is that still for the top 1%?
No. That's actually been kind of talked about a lot this year with the pros. I mean, so some of these shows, like this weekend is coming up, Tampa Pros this weekend, and I think there's like 6, maybe 7, 8 guys total in open bodybuilding. And so people, are kind of knocking the fact that it's not as competitive. But if you're paying these guys, $5,000 or $10,000 if you win, I mean, like, where's the incentive there?
Yep.
I mean, sure, 10 grand, great, great money, but that's not going to like change your life, So if there's more opportunities, and plus these guys people really underestimate how much how hard bodybuilding is. Like, people really, really underestimate that. I mean, it's what these pros do to their bodies day in and day out. I mean, the dedication, the work they put in, I've seen it firsthand with a lot of these guys, and they really sacrifice a lot. And when you're doing a job 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're getting paid pretty small amount, to win these shows, it's kind of sad. Right. Hopefully in the near future. I mean, every year the big shows, the Olympia, the Arnolds, they're paying out more money. But hopefully there's a better way they can fund this, and kind of, better, whether it's sponsors, things like that can contribute more, because it just makes it challenging, I think.
It's almost like CrossFit, and I know I can talk CrossFit with you, and I haven't been following it as closely, but CrossFit over the last couple of years has been going through sort of an identity crisis as well, with like what they're doing. Yeah. And I think bodybuilding is maybe the same way, where it's like we've got the pro level bodybuilding and the pro level CrossFit is nothing like what you see in the day-to-day gyms for both of those sports. Right. And then the second part of that is like, is it worth it for these people to be giving their life training 4 hours a day plus 7 days a week?
Right.
Make not that much money unless you happen to win the CrossFit games and happen to have a lot of
or you have a big spot. The sponsors is kind of where I think most of these guys make their money. I mean, some of the top guys, they're lucky enough to have huge sponsors that are probably paying them up north of 10 grand a month, to rep their product, but unless you're one of the top 10 in the world, there's no way it's a living. It's like these guys probably train people, they have big sponsors, they do some coaching on their side too, but like there's not many people can get away with it. Some of these guys still, a lot of them probably still have day jobs too.
It's kind of a scenario of like where the top and are like kind of like a rich get richer kind of thing, because they can afford to like spend all their time training and have the best, like, you know, nutrition, the best supplements, you know, whatever it is that what they're putting into their bodies. Like Matt Fraser was, I think he was able to win so many years in a row because he didn't have to go to work every day, right? Like he could just,
right.
That has to play a role in it, when like the guy in 10th is, or Pat Bellner is like working his job every day. Like, I mean, I don't know, but I always
okay, so yeah.
He's a PT.
He's been, I mean, dude, some of these guys that are still in the CrossFit world, dude, I don't know how you do it. I'm 34, man. I feel broken. Like at 30, I was like, I'm done. Like, how these guys stay healthy is beyond me.
So like, when did you make the trend? Like, I want to hear a little bit more about your CrossFit days, because and the thing of recording this, we're not going to release it today, but the CrossFit Games started yesterday, I think. Today is like one for the individuals. I believe yesterday was like age group, which you usually have it on in your office in there.
He's probably got it on in the background. He's watching it.
I'll have it on. I'll totally have it on.
Career and when you made the transition to bodybuilding, and then kind of how long, like how big were you as a CrossFitter, and then like how long did it take to get big enough to compete as a bodybuilder? Because like people still don't understand that. Like CrossFit's big and jacked, but they're not still, like, I mean, they're not a bodybuilder. It's crazy.
Great question. So I you know, when I moved down here from Ohio in 2011, you know, I was still like in the bodybuilding world. I weighed about $160 on a good day, and I was pretty small. And you know, I was still just lifting weights, doing my thing. And I used to be the fat kid, so I was always concerned about gaining weight, and I didn't have the education enough and the understanding that I had to gain a little weight and lose the abs in order to actually grow. Right. So, you know, when I was in PT school first year, one of the girls that's in my program, she made it to the CrossFit Games. She was a great CrossFitter, and she kind of sucked me into it. So sure enough, started going to the CrossFit gym with her, and I had a blast with it. It was fun, competitive. You know, over time I got good at it, and I just loved the environment. And so I did that, man. So 2011 until 2018. Yeah. So I was in it.
2011 is like relatively early in that's when CrossFit was kind of peaking, I think, right? CrossFit didn't start till like 2006 or something.
That's back when the men would snatch like 85 pounds and call it good.
Yeah.
Right? No, literally, it was like stuff.
Yeah. It was like, you snatch 135, you're awesome. You know, it's like nowadays, if you're not snatching 300, like you should quit. Like it's crazy. Crazy. Yeah. Like my shoulders would explode if I tried to do that nowadays. Yeah. So I got sucked into the CrossFit world, and, you know, it was pretty good at it. It wasn't great. You know, as a team, we made it to regionals a couple times, and which was cool. And then, you know, did a lot of local competitions. You know, people are gonna make fun of me here, but I'm gonna say it. My claim to fame is beating Matt Fraser in 2 events at one of the competitions we did. Like, God, it had to be like 6, 7, probably 70 years ago down here in Florida. So I mean, I miss it. I do miss it though. Like just the camaraderie and the people, like getting to compete against someone like Matt Fraser and Noah Olson, and a lot of these guys they're all cool guys. Like the girls are pretty nasty to each other. You know, like backstage and competitive. Yeah, women know it, right? And all the guys, it was just they're so cool. Everyone was fun, and the camaraderie. We almost like strategized together. Like how are you gonna break that up? How are you gonna do that? Like it was just fun. You know, just doing all that, and it was a great time. My body was a little beat up after a while, and so when I met my wife, my now wife, when I met her in January 2019, she was competing in bikini and bodybuilding. And I did 2 shows back in college. I weighed about $155 soaking wet. Back when I competed the first one.
We need pictures.
Oh no! Oh, they're hilarious. God, I looked like a Holocaust victim. It was scary. It was sad. It was scary. Like I was skin and bones. I looked like, it was bad. It was bad. So yeah, I was tiny. I was
right now.
I mean, for reference, guys, if you're watching this, like, you see the difference. Like Jeff is an inch or 2 taller than me. But I'm 170 and he's 240. So I mean, there's, you know,
I'm 240. Yeah,
this is a massive difference. And 140 would be wild.
Yeah. So I was just a little guy, and you know, so when I met my wife, she told me, she's like, and I was on our first date. I'll never forget this. She's like, "I'm gonna get you to do another show." And in my head, I'm rolling my eyes. I'm like, "There's no way in hell anyone's getting me back on a bodybuilding stage." Like knowing what it took to get there. the dieting, the cardio, the sacrifice. I'm like, there's no way. And so sure enough, 2 months later, I hired a coach and I stepped on stage that July.
You didn't waste any time.
No.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead. What are you saying?
But a much different like category than what you're competing in now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's so many different
Yeah.
ones.
So when I met my wife, when I met Jenna, I was probably $185, weighed about $185. And so I died, and maybe almost 190. I hired a coach. We had a little growth phase, and then we dieted pretty hard down to 175. And I think the lowest I got that year, because we did a couple shows that year, I got down to about 170. And so I was just small. Competed at middleweights. I competed in classic physique. I was small, So like I was lean, but I needed more muscle. And at the height I'm at, you just didn't look good on me. And so over time, like the next year after that too, I was trying to slowly grow, but also fit into the weight class. And suffering to get down to that 175, 176 just wasn't working. And so started working with Matt Jansen, who's like a really popular, great coach, one of the best in the world. He's located up in Stewart, which isn't far. I linked up with him, and then he told me, he's like, "Hey Jeff, sorry buddy, you're not classic anymore. You're a bodybuilder. Like you don't have a pretty physique. Like we're moving up in a weight class." So that year I stepped on stage. I think it was 2021. I still wasn't ready to step on stage, but I won my class in light heavies with the weight cap's 198. So I won a local show at that. And then we took the rest of the year off. Then I stepped on the national stage just this past year. And so I probably gained a good 5 to 8 pounds in the off season with his coaching. The biggest I got last off season was probably 225 to 227, and it held it. And I still have another good 5 months to grow. I don't want to get that much bigger than I am now, because losing 40 pounds for the next show is going to be pretty miserable.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
Oh.
So if you have a little more tissue to spare, I mean, obviously when you diet hard, you're going to lose some muscle. But if you have a little extra tissue to spare, it's kind of a good thing. So 240 has been is very challenging to maintain. I mean, I'm not doing a lot of cardio. I'm just eating a lot of food and training hard. So that's kind of where things are right now.
How many calories do you eat to get up to 240 pounds?
Yeah. So, I mean, on a day-to-day basis, I mean, you guys know like what I do is like, I'm not very active in the office. I'm doing stuff with my hands. I'm doing some soft tissue, nothing too crazy between some dog walks. So I'm not super, super active. My training sessions are anywhere between 60 and 75 minutes, probably 5 days a week. I'm eating upwards of 4,200 calories a day. So, and that's you guys both look at each other like, it's a lot of food. Yeah.
That is a lot of food and like you said, you're not that active right now. So I imagine even if you have a few extra steps in there, you'd have to be pushing 5,000 calories.
Is it like carbs, right? Like how many carbs you put down?
Oh yeah. Most of the days probably a little over 500. Yeah.
What's your fat? Your fats are like 55 and your carbs are like 700 a day.
All right. Yeah. Like I ate about 300 grams of protein a day, carbs north of 500, fats probably 70 to 80.
Wow.
It's a lot of food.
Wow, that's so low in fats. Yeah, that's what do you like? So is a lot of shakes, or like is it just straight up chicken breasts and fish?
Yeah, so I do. I mean, I'm sure that. So my coach might kill me if I say this, but I'm like 80-20 on my diet. So sometimes I'm sure that fat number is a little inflated.
Okay. I love that for you. The nutrition lifestyle girl in me is like, good for you. Good for you.
Right. Yeah. So like I'm probably, if we're being honest, I'm sure it's probably 100 grams of fat a day, give or take.
Okay.
And then, because don't get me wrong, I love like my wife and I love like at night, even though she's in prep, so I make sure I don't overstep my boundary. But I mean, we do like a little rice cake with some nut butter. And I do it with some like strawberry preserves or some jelly and stuff, and that's like my little PB&J snack. So like I love my peanut butter, I love my almond butter. I have to have a little extra of it. So, and I love my steak. So I eat a lot of red meat too. So
have you seen our post about the Ninja Creamy? Have you ever heard of the Ninja Creamy?
Yeah. Oh, dude, I need to get one.
You do. You guys do need one.
That would perfectly fit what you do.
Yeah,
perfectly.
It looks amazing.
Oh, it's so good.
All right, I'm gonna order one right when we're done.
It
looks amazing.
We love it. It tastes delicious.
I do love my actual ice cream too. So like I said, I'm in the off season, so I can kind of get away with a little bit of ham top, a little bit here and there, some extra. Yeah, because like if I miss some meals, man, I drop weight. so it's tough.
Like immediately.
It is tough.
He wakes up, he's like, fuck, I'm 10 pounds lighter.
Yeah. If I miss some meals or I have a bad week or something, I just can't get it. I'm too busy. I'll drop a couple pounds easily. And so anybody who says they eat a lot, they're full of shit, because they don't. I mean, if anyone says, oh, I'm trying to gain weight, but they there's no way they're eating enough. Yeah.
No, I would love to hear that from you, because I think there's always power in reinforcement. But
yeah,
from you've worked with General Pop too, and you've been in this industry for long enough.
Yeah.
And I think like one thing that we talk about on here a lot is like just self-realization and self-awareness with clients and the people that are out there wanting to get whether it's get bigger, get stronger, or the other way, and like lose body fat. And I think like the number one thing is that people just aren't being honest with themselves. But I'd love to hear kind of your take on that, since you just kind of glossed over it a little bit with like you're not gaining because you're not eating enough. You're not losing weight because you're eating more than you think that you are, right? So what are your common ones, or where do you think people go wrong from either it's bodybuilding or PT or any of them?
Right. So we can, I mean, it all kind of comes down to the same thing. If somebody's got some elbow issue or a back issue, and we can do a lot of soft tissue. We can dry needle it. We can get it feeling better. But I'm going to give you, X, Y, and Z to do at home, every single day, or 4 times a week. And if you're not doing these things to reinforce what we did, it's not going to get better. You come back in a week, oh, hey, it's not any better. Okay, well, what have you been doing? Show me what you've been doing. And then they can't show you. They don't know how many reps, how many sets. If you're not, logging what you're doing in the gym, I don't know how you guys track it, but I'm a pen and paper guy. So every machine I use in the gym, or everything I do, I write it down. I write the weights. I write the reps. If I get partial reps, I put +1, +2. Like I'm logging it, so I know, and I'm logging the order. So if you're not tracking the data, how do you know if you're improving? Whether that's with food, whether that I have a scale. I weigh most of my food. It's the off season. Don't judge me.
Not judging. I do love it.
Don't judge. I mean, once you get good at it too, you kind of gauge how much, you can guess pretty close how much you're eating once you do it enough. But no, like my wife and I, we still weigh out all our food. It takes 2 seconds to do. You just prop your thing on the scale and just fill up what you're eating, whether it's rice or meat or whatever. And if you're not tracking that data, how do you expect to improve? I can't remember last Thursday, how much weight I did on, how many reps I got, on shoulder press. I can't remember that. Did I get partials? Did I use a 2.5? Like, I can't remember. So if you're not I think that's a big thing people forget is if you really want to make progress, you have to be diligent about it. You got to really, be mindful, all the things. If you want to be the best golfer in the world, or be the best bodybuilder in the world, everything has to be perfect. I mean, I'm sure you guys, we can talk about some of the best athletes in the world. I mean, we can talk about Tiger, we can talk about Kobe, we can talk about MJ, we can talk about Tom Brady. Like any of these guys we can talk about, if anyone really actually looked at their work ethic and career, I mean, these guys were showing up early to practice, staying late, and they put in multiple hours more than everyone else, and they tracked all their stuff. They were so perfect with what they did. That's why they were great. Mm-hmm. So, and if we can break all that down into something simple, like, oh, my back hurts or my ankle hurts, well, how's your mobility? How's your strength? What have you been doing? We can break down all these variables and then actually get a routine that supports, where they're struggling. And if they're not doing it to the T, or they're just slacking on it, how are they going to improve? That's kind of how I feel about it.
No, I love that. And I love that coming too from a guy who's not, we're not 20 anymore. And I think as we age and we're also not 40 or 50, right? So maybe I'll kick myself in the foot saying this, my future self, but people like to just kind of put whatever they want in front of them as an excuse, whether it's like, well, I'm getting older and so I can't anymore. And it's like, Jeff, you're a perfect example of someone who still put on size and mass and train hard. Mm-hmm. And I think Cody and I are actually in that same phase too. I was like the skinny runner girl for so long. And now it's like, you can watch 215 pounds and do the things I never thought I could do in my mid 30s. So it's like consistency and tracking over years, truly years.
I'll actually give you another little example of that. So my dad, he's in great shape. He's 66. He's been retired a couple of years. And so he actually called me up like a couple months ago and he called me, left me a message. He's like, It's like, Jeffrey, I got a bodybuilding question for you. So he called me up and he just wanted some more guidance on, how to be better in the gym. He eats protein, not enough. His pre-workout nutrition wasn't great. And so I kind of wrote a program up for him, and I explained to him, training, relatively close to failure, and how to grow tissue, how to get stronger. And he's been doing it for a month now. And he texts me all the time. He's like, man, I feel great. He's like, I'm gonna need more weight on this machine now. And so, he's 66. And he's been active his whole life.
Awesome.
If you looked at my mother-in-law, my mother-in-law and father-in-law, both excellent shape, and they're in their 60s, and they're killing it. It's like, it doesn't matter which age you're at. If you just really put in the time and the effort, and your nutrition's on point, it doesn't matter how old you are. It's never too late to start either. It's just, what's a priority to you? It's not if you don't make time for it. I used to work 10-12 hour days. I still found time to get in the CrossFit gym in the morning.
Yep.
You got to make time for it. That's the important thing.
100%. I work with a bunch of desk jockeys, and I used to be in accounting, corporate accounting, 7 days a week,
right.
10-12 hour day bullshit. Still made time for fitness. So it's always funny when people are like, well, I don't have time because I don't work in this industry. And it's like, I've done that thing too. I've done that job too. Like, we've all been in different situations and seasons of life. And I think, like, just getting out of your own way and being realistic with your expectations of yourself. People tend to kind of shoot themselves in the foot a little bit, but I think
it's harder when you're in the industry and you're working with people all day, or in the gym all day, than to actually work out yourself.
It is.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's why my biggest problem is, like, if I trained 8 people, 10 is a whole lot. So 8's like max for a day. Like,
same for me. 8.
Like, that's a lot.
Why?
The last thing I want to do is work out some more. Like, after I just watched people work out, like, and then I think I hope this doesn't change the subject too much, but you kind of hit on this a little bit about training to failure and things like that. That's one thing I'm because I'm doing like a bodybuilding program right now, like getting close to failure and figuring that out right now is like where I'm really able to push myself, and it's a lot of fun. And then you do that in CrossFit and like with the barbell, but a different way. So like I'd love to hear kind of from you, like what exercises you used to do to push yourself, and then kind of the exercises you do now. And of course you're tracking all of these still, like kind of so what we were talking about, not go too off subject, but like what's changed? Like, can you tell me like what's changed so much, like how you used to train, like day in and day out, like what the exercises used to look like and what they look like now?
Oh man. Yeah. Great. Obviously, going from the CrossFit gym to a bodybuilding gym. I've been in the fitness world for a long time, and, I'm 34. I've been doing this stuff I've been in the gym since I was like 13, and, it's been a long time, and you're always learning something new. Right. Like, I feel like once you get to the point where you think you know everything, I think you're an absolute idiot, because nobody knows it all. We're always learning, what works for you guys might not work for me. Like, one of the things that we're so focused on in, whether it's golf, whether it's baseball, whether it's, CrossFit, whatever we're doing, we're so focused on external output. Okay. So we're so focused on, okay, I'm going to swing this club. I don't want the ball to go, perfectly down fairway. Perfect. Right. Or in CrossFit, I'm going to move this bar over my head. We don't really think about, what goes into that. What does my shoulder have to do? What do my ankles have to do in order to make this effective movement? And so one of the things I think that we're missing, in especially CrossFit of all things, is your body physically capable of doing a snatch or an overhead squat? Like, do you have the hip and ankle and knee mobility and shoulder mobility to hit these things? Otherwise, we're asking for injury. And that's one of the things that's very different. Is it's like, okay, well, here's a workout. You're doing this. And you don't have a choice. It's barbell, this, and this. You might can scale it back, but maybe someone's not even ready for the barbell. So that's like a big thing in CrossFit, is just like, here's the plan, go figure it out. Whereas in bodybuilding, it's like, well, what do I feel like I connect with? So I don't know. I think it might have been one of you guys on one of your podcasts, and I think, Eric, it might have been you. You said bodybuilders try to make lightweights feel heavy, and powerlifters try to make heavyweights feel light. I think is that correct?
I sure did.
That's stuck with me because I was like, that is a great way to put it, because that's the difference between a sport that we're doing for performance or a sport for aesthetics. And so when I'm in the gym, I'm trying to feel the muscle work. It's not just move this bar from point A to point B or move the machine from point A to point B. If I'm just doing that, I don't feel what I'm working. To me, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
And so like I'm seeing CrossFit, same thing, powerlifting. I want to make this bar feel light as opposed to I want to make this muscle work harder. Right. And so that's kind of the big difference. And so a lot of this, and I think one of the most overrated pieces of equipment in the gym right now, from a bodybuilding perspective or even a strength perspective, is the barbell. I think like not all barbell movements, but I think from a pressing movement, if we're doing shoulders or chest, I think it's a very overrated piece of equipment because we're not going to get full functionality of what the muscles do. A lot of machines or dumbbells nowadays let your body move in the lines that we want. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the newer age systems, Atlantis is a great company. Panada makes great equipment now. And a lot of these newer companies, even Prime, a lot of these newer companies kind of create a much better biomechanical setup. And so that's what we focus on now is just contraction. People think you need to do big barbell movements to grow. I mean, I know a ton of pro bodybuilders that haven't touched the barbell bench press or squat in a decade, and they're massive. Yeah, so you got to just figure out at the end of the day, what you connect with. What feels good for you, what feels good in your joints, and so that's kind of how it's shifted even more so now. And also, when we're doing performance sports, it's more about speed. And it's more about control. And I'm trying to control the movement. It's slower. That's kind of where I think things shift when you're going from a performance sport as opposed to like a bodybuilding sport.
Right. Yeah. And like, now it's definitely, as opposed to I need to move this weight X amount of times, like that's my goal for today or whatever. It's like, how many, I'm learning this now. It's like, where can I get my hard like sets or reps in? Like how close can I get to failure? Like, I read some studies. It was like, the last 5, like the most important, like you don't want to do like necessarily sets under 5, but you want to like get up to like, like a 9 or a 12 or something, whatever, 7 to 12, I think was like what the was that. And you want those final 5 to like, still have your technique, like say if you're like some kind of like, and this particular study, I wasn't huge fans of any kind of free weights. They were like, oh, let's just do machines. And, like, let's just feel like, that last 5 is like, trying to squeeze your elbows together to get that fly. And it's like, that should be shaking. And, really that's what your goal should be, is like getting that close to failure versus like, hey, let me just lift this amount of weight X amount of times.
Kind of, if I can tag along to that a little bit. So one of the things too, like, I feel like most people don't have any clue what training to failure looks like or feels like. I'm sure both of you. Yeah. And so, shout out to John Quint up at Westside Barbell. He was really good at kind of explaining this concept up in Boston for the functional range ISM course. And so we have to redefine failure. Does failure mean that, obviously within safety, I'm doing a machine. When is it real failure? Is it when I stop doing perfectly pretty reps? Well, not necessarily. If I'm doing perfectly controlled, smooth reps on a press, and then let's say I can't get that full rep anymore. Well, then I can do partial reps. And then once I can't do partials, maybe I can do isometric. People kind of undervalue isometrics in training. And I'm sure Cody, you use them a lot too with clients. But if we do isometrics, we're going to still generate a lot of peak force, and we're going to take that tissue to failure. More so than if we just gave up on the full reps. So obviously, like, you can't do that on a barbell squat or a deadlift. It's a little different. But that's something that I think is people need to really understand what it means to train hard, because people, most people's failure is probably five reps in reserve or more. And so, teaching people, right? Like teaching people how to actually train, so I'm, trying to, the typical, do 3 sets of 10. Well, what if 10's easy? What if you do 3 sets of 10 and you don't even breathe heavy? So we have to like redefine the parameters, I think, for a lot of people to understand, how to really make progress in the gym.
Yeah, I think that's so important to talk about. And I'm so glad that you brought it up, because I did want to talk about training failure with Jeff specifically. And again, coming from a non-bodybuilder type, I do think another mistake that people make who are the ones going into the gym, and this isn't discrediting people stepping into the gym, but you have the box checker type people that are very disconnected from their bodies, one, and then 2, they're just going in doing, either they're not tracking and they're just doing the same shit, and they're wondering why they're not getting results, even though they're, being consistent. And it's like,
Right.
We're not doing the same thing. We could be doing the same exact workout and we each could be getting completely different results based on who's listening to their body, who's pushing themselves, choosing the right weight, pushing to failure. And I think that's such an important thing. And I don't know if I have an answer on how. It's a mindset thing for sure. I think for most people, all people, but I'd love to hear your take on like getting people to shift that mindset of like either mailing it in at the gym, knowing when to stay home and take a rest day, and then also knowing like that the quality of your workouts is really what matters and being able to push yourself.
Right. I mean, it's funny because I'm sure you've heard this before, but a lot of people think us bodybuilders are in the gym for 3-4 hours a day and then we're doing 2 a day. It's like, no. I train, so I think you guys know, your listeners probably don't. I've had 2 ACL surgeries on my right knee.
Yep.
And so two massive, knee surgeries. That was about like 6-7 years ago. So my knee's a little stiff. So when I train legs, it takes me a good 75-90 minutes from start to finish. That's warm up to finish. I'm at the gym, stretch, etc. Most training, if I'm doing, my cars and my pails and rails before training, any other day takes me an hour max. I mean, I train 5 days a week, and that's in competition prep or off season. It's 5 days a week, and most of my workouts are an hour long. And so it really doesn't take that much, I think, to really get an effective workout in. And the thing is too, is if you want to make any change in life, whether it's in the gym, whether it's at work, whether it's a business, relationship, you got to put in effort. Like you fucking got to work, right? Like you can't expect any progress to be made if you're not really trying. If you go into the gym and you just get on a machine and just press away, like, and you're on your phone, like you're not breathing heavy, like what do you expect? Like, unless you're really going to give your body,
and have a conversation with someone while you're bicep curling, that's not going to get it
done. There's no way. Yeah. Like that's when you really know you're going to make progress. You really have to put in the effort. I feel like, in people, it's sad that people just want that instant gratification. I think, in the fitness space, especially with, if diet nutrition's, with the goal, whether it's to lose weight or it's to gain weight or to perform better, it's one of the hardest sports to do, I think, because it's such a delayed gratification.
Yes.
You have to put in all this work. I mean, you both know you have to put in all this work for such a long time, and it takes so long to see changes. You don't see changes week to week. It might be not, might be a month, might be, you like, I mean, like my wife, when she during this competition prep, she plateaued with her weight for, God, I think it was like 5 or 6 weeks. So she was freaking out about it, which I understand. You're really putting in, all this work, but you just got to keep pushing through.
Right.
You got to be, if everything's on point, you might plateau. You got to change some things up, but you just got to keep working. Otherwise, what do you expect? You're not going to, anything you do in life, if you don't put in the effort, it's not a priority. It's not going to change. So you have to just shift that mindset, and whether you hit one workout a week or 5, that one is still better than nothing.
Yes.
So if you can, twice a week, if you do an upper body day, a lower body day, and you get anything in, that's better than nothing. 100%. So I think that's something that people need to remember is like, you don't have to be there 5-6 days a week. Like that's not how it works.
Right.
And if you had to pick something, if you had to pick one thing, I'm sure you guys say the same thing. If you had to pick one thing that's a priority, a lot of these people, I want to lose weight. Well, they jump on a treadmill, they jump on a bike, and they just do all this cardio or stairs. Like, I think personally, I'm sure you guys would agree, it'd be so much more beneficial for them to be lifting weights than doing that hour of cardio every day.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So it's like shifting the priority. Like, it's like don't judge me. I do very little cardio right now. And I'm still relatively lean with the amount of food I eat. And so cardio should be a tool, I think, to keep the heart healthy for one, but it should be just kind of like a supplement to the training we already do. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Right. And you don't even do because who was it? Well, I think we talked about Janelle alone on here, but we had a guy that we knew in DC, and like when he was like really jacked, he would like only do like a couple of sprints, or he would only do like a very small amount of things that were cardio. He was very limited. He was like, nope. And like, there'd be a class and he would like demonstrate a movement. He was like, that's all I'm doing.
That's my cardio.
Right. There you go. Yeah, my cardio consists of walking the puppies, a couple miles a day. That's about it. Usually 1 to 2 miles, and that's about all we're getting. Today's a rest day, so took them for like a 2-mile walk, and then a little sauna, a little cold plunge, and I'm here. So
is
that's
this
about
walking
it.
around Florida right now, like a sauna though?
Well, walking a mile
Oh,
in Florida,
God.
yeah, I mean that's
Oh,
workout.
yeah. I mean, even down here when it's 6 o'clock in the morning, before the sun comes up, it's still just humid and nasty. I mean, yeah. So that's good. My heart rate gets up a little bit. It's still hot. Still
It's
pretty
hot.
brutal.
It's hot.
Yeah,
So,
you
we
guys
came
know
to
it.
see
Yep.
you around this time a year ago, and it was pretty hot.
Yeah.
And my
Yeah.
injury was what? Did I have a shoulder? I don't even remember what I had. I had like a shoulder, wrist, and like a plantar fasciitis. And you came for like
My
upper
back.
back. So.
Neck, yeah.
I've been doing my homework. I haven't seen a PT since I've seen you. I just wanted to throw that
Good.
in there. I literally do my exercises, and Cody, maybe you see me
Mhm.
doing that sometimes,
Yeah.
but I do my same ones.
Yep.
And I've been
Yeah,
feeling
nice.
good.
Love it.
Like some of
See,
the
prime example. Prime example. If you do your shit and you get better, right?
I've
Like,
been
you
good.
gotta
I
do
have
it.
not had any problems.
Yeah.
So I hope we're
Love
doing
it.
time. I do want to ask you before we get too long here.
Yeah.
So this is I'm a golf brand now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I want to kind of ask you about I've tried to send you more golfers, but people are stubborn about going to physical therapists.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
I've given a lot of information out. So if you're listening, please go see a physical therapist if you have an energy.
Yep.
They will fix you up. So what are some of the most common ones you see from golfers? I know I've seen you with older gentlemen, but from all walks of life, what are some of the most common things you see?
So I'd say with most of my golfers, I mean, obviously in Jupiter, Florida here, I mean, we see a ton of golfers. We see some guys, quite a few pro golfers too.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's amazing. You see a little bit of everything. A lot of these guys are in great shape. I mean, most of the golfers nowadays, I mean, they're pretty damn good shape. And I'd say the biggest thing is we see a lot of hip and back. I mean, and that's the biggest two. People really, I think, neglect their hips. They might stretch them, but they don't strengthen them. People aren't strengthening their hip rotators really well. Their hip internal rotation isn't good. I mean, because when you're swinging a club, if that that front foot is not rotating well, you're gonna if the hips don't rotate with mobility in there, we're gonna torque the spine more. And so I'd say a lot of hip and back, and then obviously we do get quite a bit of neck in there too. We'll sprinkle in some shoulder and some wrist, but I mean, I'd say the spine is really, really important. Make sure we have good rotation, good movement. Whether that's the thoracic spine, lumbar spine, or cervical. So making sure we can really open up that thoracic rotation, make sure that everything's just strong and stable. Because I mean, golf's a pretty violent sport. I mean, when you're swinging a club pretty hard, I mean, that's a lot of torque you're putting on the body. And so if you don't have the stabilizers, I feel like to really support it, I mean, that's pretty dangerous. Mm-hmm. So I'd say the spine, the whole spine, neck, thoracic, and lumbar is huge, as well as the hips. Those are probably the most common things I see, weekly for my golfers. Yeah.
Could I ask you a couple of your just a couple of ones that you would give someone for a hip and actually cervical spine, because I think people really neglect that. I mean, I think you see a lot of torso rotation and stuff out there online. I want to hear your for hip, but definitely something cervical spine, because people don't realize how important a role that plays on your ability to turn, right? If your cervical spine isn't moving well, a lot of things below that are going to start doing some funky stuff.
Some other stuff, right? Yeah, because at the end of the day, if we're doing any sport, we're trying to move objects from point A to point B. Whether it's a golf swing or a snatch, your body will figure out a way, right? And then that's when we get injuries. And so I think for the hip, working internal rotation, there's a lot of ways we can work pails and rails for hip internal and external rotation. I mean, so obviously we can do our shoulder internal external rotation. People, usually shoulders are pretty easy to work, but people don't work that for their hips. The hips rotate. I mean, the hip joint is very similar to the shoulder joint. So if you have really poor hip internal rotation, there's some really good ways to prime that up and to get it stronger so you can follow through on your swing while that foot stays planted. That hip does rotate internally. So I've treated a lot of golfers with back pain. They're like, oh, my back hurts. And I'm like, well, we got to fix your hip. And they're like, well, my hip doesn't hurt. I'm like, well, your hip's shit. So if we fix your shit hip, your back's going to feel better.
Yeah.
And so people neglect that a lot. So I think that's an easy one relatively to do, working hip internal external rotation for strength and stability. As well as the mobility component. It needs to be mobile, it needs to move on, it needs to be strong. For the neck, I mean, it sounds like Cody, you might be doing some of the cervical cars. So doing some of the neck cars that we do, I make my guy that just left this morning. I had first guy. He's been doing his thoracic cars and his cervical cars all the time, and just improving that mobility and then learning how to where your body is in space. and, we can generate that strength just by moving better. I think those are some huge things people can really work on, as well as just, overall just making sure that we're not neglecting the little muscles. We're making sure that we're working, our stabilizers, our rotator cuff, our hip rotators. The spine's made to flex. You guys know that very well. The spine's made to flex, made to extend. Mm-hmm. And so as long as your tissue can handle the load we put, I can rotate. As long as we make sure that we're developing the load and the tolerance to that, whether we're strengthening it with bands, with cables, with weights, with gravity, there's so many ways to do it. There's no one perfect exercise. I mean, everyone that comes in, I'm sure you both know too, with your clients, not everyone's going to fit this perfect mold. Hey, I want you to do these 3 things. Mm-hmm. There's no, we see it on Instagram all the time. Do these 3 exercises. This is what you have to do. It's like, well, no, not everyone should do that. It might work for a lot of people. Right. But, we got to remember what's the goal. Is it a strength goal? Is it a mobility goal? Is it a connective tissue goal? Is it a capsule goal? And there's all these different factors that can play such a big role into that.
That's exactly why people need to go see a PT. And
exactly.
All the time. Because it's we want to be able to help people, and it's you hate to give the answer of it depends, but really,
always.
It's the right answer. And, for those of us, I mean, we're trainers, but we can only take people so far. And we both really believe in finding a PT, because there's nothing better than having a good PT in your back pocket to sort of assess you, tell you what's going on. What has things changed too? I used to have injuries in my hips, and now it's all upper body. Like these things evolve as our training gets different and all that good stuff. So
big time.
I think that's a really good way actually to wrap up and say, please find yourself a good PT.
Right.
In Jupiter, find Jeff
and
Hart.
One of the things too, don't, if I could make a recommendation to people out there, don't just find a basic PT. Find somebody who actually is like an athlete, who actually cares, who actually knows what they're doing. I think the best therapists, any PTC, whether it's a great chiro or a PT, the best therapists are athletes themselves, so somebody who's been through it. I mean, you guys are both great at what you do because you guys golf, you guys are fit, you guys have play a lot of sports, CrossFit, all that stuff. Like, you guys know what you're talking about. I've played a lot of sports and done all that stuff. So I feel like I have a better understanding of what the requirements are, not only physically, but also mentally. So if you can really understand what someone's goal is, what their approach is, and be able to break down what we're doing, I think that's so important to make sure that your therapist that's treating you, or your chiro or your neuromuscular therapist, or whoever you're working with, making sure that they can break down the movement patterns you have, and not just say, oh, my shoulder hurts. Well, let's look at the elbow. Let's look at the back. Let's look at the neck. Let's break down the whole system to figure out what's going on and why. And I think that's so important, because a lot of basic general PTs, if you're, going to a PT mill where they're seeing a bunch of people, you're not going to get the care you need. So I think it's important. You're going to get what if you're going to put a couple bucks into it, you're going to get a couple bucks out of it. So if you make an investment to see a good PT, it's going to pay off in the long run, I think.
Right. And then, I mean, I even to your point, you're talking about, helping someone with their back. Like, hey, let's talk about your hip.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I came to see you. I had seen multiple videos for plantar fasciitis. People don't know, it's like, pain in the arch of your foot when you walk or run.
Yeah.
It's giant pain.
Yeah.
And until I met you, everyone was just like treating my calves. They were like, oh, we'll just dry needle your calves. We'll call it. And Jeff got down there and like looked at my whole foot, and he was like, oh, your big toe is shit. Your big toe doesn't move at all.
Yep.
I was like, I was like, who gives it's a toe? Like, whatever.
Yeah.
But he's like, no, you got to get this thing moving better, and it'll help your whole foot. So it's important to get all the little things checked out. Who knows? You could have a toe problem like I do.
No, but for sure, if you get a good PT, they're absolutely not all created equal. And I'm really glad Jeff brought that up, because I do hear that from clients. They go to their insurance provided one that's at a hospital down the road or whatever. Yeah. It's like, no. Do your research. A lot of the independent ones that are out there doing their own thing are who I suggest people look for. And that's who we've had success with in the past, since we've lived all over the place. But 100% y'all are not created equal. Yeah. Dr. Jeff is quite a unique one, actually. So
appreciate that. You gotta find somebody who cares, though. You gotta like, if you ask, I mean, you guys know, and any of my clients would tell you, like, I'm very lucky to love what I do. Like, I love it. Like, it brings me joy to help people, and I just love like fixing people. It's a puzzle. It's fun because I get to learn about people. Like, we shoot the shit while we're working together, and it's just fun. So finding someone who's really passionate about what they do and continues to learn and educate themselves, like, That's something that I think is really important, because like I don't want people to have to see me all the time. You know, I like, just like you said, Erica, like you've been doing your stuff, like you don't have to see me all the time. You know, if somebody, you know, they start to feel better, all right, keep doing your stuff. When you need me, you come see me. You know, I don't want most people to come in and see me 3 times a week. Like if I see you once a week or once a month, great, fine with me, as long as you're getting better.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I always said about a good trainer too, is like, you shouldn't have to train with me forever. Like as a one-on-one,
right?
You should probably do one of my programs because it's programs, not one-on-one sessions, but I should teach you enough, and I should do a good enough job to where you can now like go out and do this on your own. So like same thing with you. But then I'm like, but if you want to keep paying me to come back and see me because you enjoy me, services, that's totally fine too. Exactly.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Enjoy you and your services.
Hey, whatever. What, you know, if you want to keep coming back and like, you know, hang out and like we can do a session and then I can just check you out or whatever. Yeah. And Jeff can cup you or whatever it is, you know, just like as some maintenance, you know, because you enjoy us. Like that's, you know, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's the way to do it.
It's a business. Let's not
for Lola and squat.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I think we could have gone on forever, but I don't want to keep you too long.
Yeah, no, this was great, Jeff. I mean, seriously,
appreciate you guys.
Information. I'm sure we'll have you on again.
Please. Love it.
For anybody listening, again, please reach out to Jeff. He's very accessible on Instagram, I think is what the best way for people to find you.
Yep. Yep. That'd be the best way to do it.
What is it, Doctor? What is your handle?
It's actually just J, letter J .Hart, HART, J .Hart. Pretty easy to find me. If you got questions, shoot me DM, let me know. I'm happy to help. So you kind of steer you guys in the right direction. And, you know, if you're not in the area, I do some virtual stuff. Otherwise, I'm sure I can find a great PT in your area too for you.
Yeah, he's worth talking to, y'all. And you are really connected to people all over the world, all over the country, which is really helpful. So,
and there's a lot of golfers around.
Definitely.
You are Jeff's in Jupiter. So, you still go to Stewart and work at that one place once a week? Is it Revive?
I do. Yeah. So I still, actually twice a week, Mondays and Fridays, I go up to Stewart at Revive up there, the Revive gym. And a lot of the top pro bodybuilders are up there. I do see a lot of just the, you know, general clients. There's actually a lot of golfers up there in Stewart too. So a lot of golf up there. So I see quite a few people.
I saw this girl I follow on Instagram. She's much more popular than me, but she was in there the other day. So at Revive. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's the place.
Great gym. So shout out to Dom who owns Revive. He's added 30 pieces of equipment to the gym this past week. So
that's awesome.
It was already the best gym in the state, and I think he just solidified it as the best in the country. So if you're ever in the Stewart area in Florida, you are missing out if you don't go to that gym. Great gym. Yeah.
Well, again, thanks so much, Jeff.
Appreciate you guys. Yeah, thank you guys very much. Thanks for having me on.
And we'll talk to you soon. And thanks everybody for listening.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, man.